Guy channel. The Car Guy channel. My name is Mike Hennessy. This show is all about cars and all four car guys. Get yourself a cold beer. Get yourself a cold beer, guys, because our show is... We are smoking! I'm Mike Hennessy, and you're watching the Car Guy channel. I have an auto repair shop. I've been in the business for over 30 years. You name it, we got it, we built it, we've done it, we do it. We love this car stuff, and I hope you guys do too. We're gonna have a lot of fun, got a lot of stuff cooking, so just stay tuned. Welcome to the Car Guy channel. We got a show today that's very, very unusual. We're not going to leave the shop, except for one little road test in a 1966 Ford Mustang. Gorgeous car, GT car, great history behind it, and a lot of fun. We're going to take you through a couple of our, what we call our rainy day projects, and things we're going to get ready for the winter. Customer brought his car in for service. Got to show you that car. It's absolutely spectacular, and it's a 1941. Hey, I better not spoil a surprise for you. Hey, two things you don't touch. Don't touch any of these cars. Don't touch that dial. Sit down, get yourself a cold one, and enjoy the show. When you build a street rod or a custom car, all these exotic things, there's a lot of R&D, research and development. They don't make a lot of parts for these cars that are available, like some of the easier cars, some of the Mustangs and some of the Chevelles, a lot of turnkey stuff. There's not a lot of turnkey stuff for Ranchero. Doing a 4-link rear suspension back here was a really, really challenge. We had to go ahead and order one that was for a Falcon and rechange some things around to make it work right. And a lot of things we did on it, I think, really turned out nice to put in the sway bar system, the coilovers, the disc brakes in the back. Then we got a hold of Curry. We wanted to go ahead and get the big rear end. Dennis did a great job on trying to design and custom build the car the way he wants it. And sometimes there's always some cost features involved there, guys and gals, but he's getting what he wants, and I admire him tremendously for this, and it's kind of nice to build the car for a guy like Dennis that knows what he wants. And that's really half the battle. If you know what you want and you got the juice to fund it, I say rock and roll with it. But we got the Curry rear end already installed, all the stuff welded in and painted, all the pieces the way Dennis wanted them painted. And that's always a controversy of colors. When you go ahead and build something like this, you got to detail it. Now, here's where the trick comes in. You have to assemble the car. Any car you guys build at home, you got to assemble it and then take it back apart. And that's what the whole world's all about. We assembled this, set it all in position. Now, we had to go ahead and re-weld the holes for the rear shocks, because for the Falcon, it's a little bit of a different position to put these in. When we set this here up, we had to come up to the higher hole to get the height we really need to set the tone for the way this car is going to look. Let me show you some of the brake lines in this car. They turned out just fantastic. Now, you will note that we went ahead and put in rear disc brakes. Now, these rear brakes are already colored. We're going to go ahead and paint these calipers to match the front calipers because they're a painted set. Dennis does want them to match, and I fully agree. We'll be taking these back off and painting these. But you can see the braided brake line all the way up here to the top. And, of course, custom making and bending all the brakes and the lines to fit this car is a challenge. But it's the detail work that I really feel makes this job here exceptional. We use these stainless steel screws, the clips that hold this all the way around, that go all the way to the front of the car. And plus, having all this painted ahead of time, it just gives it that really finished, that good custom look, the restoration look to what we were going for. But check out these lines. They shoot all the way to the front of the car. Now, when installing a 4-link, like we talked about earlier, I was going into the brake lines. I want to make sure we understood exactly what 4-link suspension actually is. This right here is your lower radius rod. Now, in the earlier cars, this car actually had a leaf spring that went from here, went underneath the rear end and out to the back of the car, and that kind of made the car pretty rigid and pretty firm. But a 4-link suspension, I have this rod right here, and I have another one here right on the top. This right here goes all the way to the center. That gives the fulcrum to make this rear end here. It goes up and down, and that makes it strong left and right, up and down. Of course, the shocks, they're going to do all the work for the spring, and the suspension itself is how it goes together. But the neat thing about a 4-link suspension, you can adjust these. There's adjustments all the way to the front. You can change the pitch and which way this is going to go back and forth. You can actually get a perfect alignment. Now, that's what gives you your better ride, because this is adjustable. 4-link rear suspensions are absolutely phenomenal. All the new cars, that's just the way they're made. They have 4-link suspensions in almost every new car made, even to some of the budget cars. But these are adjustable. You see this nut here? I can go ahead and adjust the pitch of this, especially for the differential in the rear end. So I think 4-link suspension is really kind of a neat plus to go into. We weren't going to do that originally to this car, but we decided to go ahead and make that step and jump into it. You can see the lines are done really nice stainless steel lines, put all inside here, the way they're bracketed, held to the car. You want to make it secure. And I always get kind of annoyed when I see some cars and things are hanging and dangling. And the other thing, people use rubber hose everywhere, you know, for a fuel line. The fuel line's got to be steel from the tank all the way to the carburetor or the fuel injection. But when they're put together like this, I think it's a nice clean job. And do the Z right here, run it along the outside of the frame, move it all the way down to the car. Here's a union here because the line was only so long, and rubber grommets. We use rubber grommets everywhere we possibly can here to shoot these into the car. And that's how it's done. I think it looks really, really nice. Then we're going to go to the front area for the brake line. And when you go ahead and do these type of bends and put it together like this here, it just makes the job so quality. And I know Dennis will really appreciate it. A lot of extra work went into it, but he does want things right, and so do I. Come all the way in for the front. And we're going to get to the top, show you how the power brakes worked out. And that's really where all the skill comes into power brakes. Now, on the original design, we sat down with Dennis. The transmission was important and very important to him, and we decided to go with a 4-speed automatic. Now, 4-speed automatic, I got to tell you, is literally twice the size as the original C4 transmission that went in this car. And figure the barrel, the size, the whole girth of the transmission is huge. So of course our mounts had to be all custom made. We made those all from scratch to incorporate with the emergency brake and the cables. Drive shaft, we're having that made as we speak, so the drive shaft will be ready to go into the car. But the size of the transmission. So this changes up a lot of things that we can do in here because of space. And of course, you know, car guys and the way the world works, where do you think the speedometer cable comes out of the transmission? Yes, in the middle of the brace of the car. So we had to do a cutout, and we're going to be channeling it back in to reinforce it. But that's where the the speedometer cable comes out of the transmission and then goes into the car. You got to have a speedometer. You got to know how fast you're going in a car like this. But these are details and things that come up, and that's called R&D, research and development. I'm putting this stuff in. Now, of course, we really had a shifter lined up originally that would go into the floor of the car like a Mustang shifter. We can't run the Mustang shifter because there's no room for the actual bottom tunnel, and the transmission is less than a half an inch. So we have to go to a cable operated ones, which I'll show you later, that mounts right on top of the tunnel, and the cable will go ahead and go to our shift lever right here. So I'll show you that when we get inside the car. Now you can see the motor's actually saddled in. Now the motor and trans are going to come back out of this car. We're going to make sure all the fit was fit. The motor and trans will come back out because the car will go for paint. We don't want to have this nice motor setup while it goes to paint. But I kind of want to show you this. They really call this the Mustang 2 type oil pan. I used to call them a camel hump pan, but the pan has to go ahead and go over the rack and pinion steering. And that was a little bit of a challenge to go ahead and get this exactly set in. So when you guys are installing any of these Mustang 2 type front ends or weld-ins and whatnot, always be aware of you need this type of oil pan and the heights and everything you need to do so that your specs got to be correct. When there's really not a lot of drawings and a lot of information for a car like this, sit down, do your research, have a buddy help you out, get some information from guys, call shops like mine, people you go ahead and use, get this thing in right, because when you weld this in, when you weld it in, it's in. Here's some great information on doing R&D. You know, when you set this motor in the car, you saddle in, everything looks perfect. We're going to be putting in power brakes. Of course, I have to be really concerned on the size of the power brake booster. Now, this right here is a small one. This actually came out of an early model Jeep, and this right here is a GM style dual master. And I had to get a diaphragm small enough so it didn't hit the valve cover. I went through 2 different models. Here's all the lines bent correctly. Vitelli did a great job on bending them in. This right here is for the stoplight switch. And this right here is what we call a proportioning valve, or another term of course, it's a pressure reducer. Now, we got disc brakes in the front. We have disc brakes in the rear. I do want to be able to adjust. And why we would do that on a car like this, because this is a light rear end car. There's not a lot of weight. Almost all our weight is in the front of the car. So I don't want the back brakes, coming on doing the skid. I want the front brakes to go ahead and take up pretty much about 60, maybe 65% of the load of the stopping, maybe even a little bit more. But we got an adjustment right here, so we can go and take care of that. So this is a really good idea to do. Recommend it all you guys to go ahead and do that. Now, when the motor comes back out of the car, you're going to see the water pump in here, all the stuff. We're going to be removing a lot of stuff on the front. We're going to go to a single pulley drive system because we're putting on air conditioning. We got the single pulley alternator and for power steering. It's going to give it a great look, and it should be just utterly spectacular. It's coming up pretty cool, and you're going to see the colors coming up here pretty soon. In another episode coming up, you're going to see the two-tone paint job. I think is a great idea. Dennis came up with one. He's got the wood bed coming in. We got to move pretty fast on this, but pretty cool car to check into. Just ain't no so
is off the shelf. I shouldn't listen to a mama say.
This right here happened to be an automobile. It's called a Hollywood Graham. Extremely rare, extremely unusual. Hollywood and Hupp kind of went together with Graham. Do a little history on them. They're utterly fantastic. Get a phone call from a gentleman that actually passed away down in Oregon. He started the process on this car, and he started the build. He did a design. He had his own thoughts, his own patterns. And so we have our tech, Jared's going through this car from bumper to bumper to find out what is it going to take to get this car here on the road and get the car running. Now, purchasing a car like this, is nothing wrong with it. If you guys are skilled and you have some knowledge behind you and a little bit of money to buy this, but then there's a lot of mysteries, and the mysteries are we never heard it run, we never drove it, and we have no idea what works and what does not work. We get this car into the shop, and it happens to have a Cadillac North Star full computer system, and I'm telling you, the guy did a lot of fantastic work, and there's a lot of work that needed to be changed because of when the R&D we were talking about on doing the Ranchero. Some things got to be put on the car, tested, checked, and make sure everything's going to work. Then you take it off, then you chrome plate it or paint it or do what you need to do. But this car here had a few of those problems that came into it, but we feel we got them cured. Took care of all the rack and pinion steering problems, pull all the stuff off the front. This is a handmade radiator. All the welding on this, on the front, all handmade, specifically for this particular car. And the color of this car is a deep burgundy Bing cherry. It looks almost black, and it's utterly fantastic when it's out there. See, the fenders are molded on, but I want to stick with underneath the hood because it's just so cool to see a Cadillac North Star in here with a single belt drive system, a lot of aluminum, a lot of cleanup stuff. But this car here, you're seeing it kind of in the stage of how I purchased it. Bought the car, and this is the way we got it. Now, when the previous owner selected a car of a Hollywood Graham, they're very unusual cars, even in originals or even being out there. There's not very many. But to go ahead and do one in construction under a street rod, I think is a great choice and a really classy idea. People take all types of cars on, but there's a lot of things that are not made for Hollywood Graham in the reproduction world, like you would build a 32 Ford, 34 Ford, a lot of stuff out there, a lot of repo stuff. This grill, it impressed me the most because it's just so straight, and it had to take painstaking hours to do. This is all handmade. It's a one only. It's a one-off, and I think it looks absolutely spectacular. See how it's welded. Each one is welded all the way on. I think probably could do a little better job on a plate on the top. We might work that out depending on what kind of show we'll put this car into. We get some touch-up paints and things to do, but the grill is just fantastic. Now, people who are not familiar with the Hollywood Graham, they look at the car and they see some details on it, and of course has a late model Cadillac emblem. The Cadillac emblem is obviously for the North Star engine that's inside the car. People came to the shop, had no idea really what it is and what really where the car kind of came from. But these fenders are actually molded into the body of the car. A lot of body work was done on it, and they're welded and molded in. And I think the split window in the back of the car, it just gives it that good, bad, cool, great look. Hope you guys enjoy it because I sure do. I think it looks great. And of course, these lights are Frenched in. They look really nice, set right into the car, nice and bright. They do really good. And the whole steam of the car, the bodywork. You guys and gals know the bodywork, the cost, the time, the makes, the money. And this looks beautiful, straight all the way down. Wheels are gorgeous on it, a very good choice. The way the top of the car kind of comes over. And that's where a lot of this work comes into. Choosing a Hollywood Graham was really a pretty cool choice. But let's show you about these doors, and let's show you inside this car. You're going to see it a little dirty because we got it in, but I thought it was worth showing it to you. Opening the door is really cool. Making those door latches work, that was a challenge because these are some of the areas that were probably not really the best areas that the craftsman that was doing the car mistakes were made, but we were able to cure most of those. But listen to this here. Door opens beautifully now. We had to redo all the latches. Let's take a look inside. I'll show you what we got. Suicide doors is the way to go. The inside of the car, I think, was really tastefully done. Just fantastic. Obviously, you're seeing it dirty, but I got to show you this car because I thought it was pretty neat. And you can see this full billet steering column from tip to toe, and that is a billet stamped banjo reproduction style steering wheel. And I think the steering wheel has a great look to the car. I love the grain of the wood and everything really about it. The seats are real comfortable in the car. It's one of these street rods that is, I think it's a drivable street rod. I think it's a car you can actually use and take it somewhere. The dash is absolutely beautiful with all trimmed off in the gold, the switches. Everything was done right on the car. Airbag suspensions, air conditioning, automatic. Car's got it all.
And I got my buddy Mark Furlong over here, and he runs the whole store here in Santa Cruz. Correct, Mark?
Yes, I do.
Now, Mark handles all my parts, all my stuff, all my weird stuff, the weird crap, anything weird, we call you.
Yes.
So we call him on all the weird stuff. This store's over in Santa Cruz, and they got five stores, right?
Yes, we do.
Now, the reason why I'm having Mark on the show is for more than one reason. I would say more than two reasons, but we got a lot of reasons why. He's got a crew. You guys be meeting his crew throughout all the shows and all the stores and stuff. I asked him a question earlier, and I'm going to change it around. How do you hire the help you got?
When they walk in, if I like the way they look and the way they talk, then I'll give them a try.
Good. All your guys have been with you for years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I like to keep them around as long as possible.
Now, how long have you been in the parts business?
24 years.
24 years? Jeez. That's a long time.
Yeah.
So you better know what the hell you're doing.
Well, I hope so. Not always, but I always try.
You guys are part techs besides part guys. So when you hire a guy, he's a car guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows parts. He knows one thing. He knows another thing. With all the stuff you guys got, you got a versatility of car guys.
Very much so.
You got guys. He's got a street rod guy, flathead guy, wholesale guy, and all your guys are legitimate bone car guys, correct?
Absolutely.
Let's rock and roll. Let's get our parts going, buddy.
Okay.
Good. Today, Mustang I consider it as a blue chip stock. It's one of the best investments in automobiles you can make, the most successful car ever built, and they're a good car to have. They never go down in value. But the neat thing is when you do try to find a Mustang, you want to get one with some options. Options is what really makes a lot of this stuff here work on all cars in the classic car world all over. And they did make a Mustang with 4-lug, 6-cylinder, 3-speed stick. They still have a good value out there, but nothing beats a GT. GT is a V8 car. This is a V8 4-barrel car. We're going to go over some of the codes here today, but being a V8 with an automatic, this car here is springtime yellow. The interesting thing about springtime yellow in this car was really called antique bronze. And the interesting thing was the owner who owned this car originally, the guy who bought this car, worked for the Ford plant. He walked down the assembly line with people he knew and watched this car get assembled. And there's not too many people can actually say they credit to that, but this particular guy did. My good buddy Keith wanted a GT. He wanted a car with some history, wanted a car with low miles, and Keith goes ahead and buys the car, and it's been his family ever since. When the Mustang was sold with the GT package, there was a lot of pretty neat little detail things to get on them. And before we open the hood, you got to take a look at the GT running lights. It makes a big deal. And a lot of the stuff can be reproduced and rebought, so if you happen to have a Mustang, you can go and get them on there. And it makes the car look really cool. It gives it that nice look in between the horse and the center. You got these here. That's the way to go. Let's check under the hood. That's where the horsepower's at. They shoehorn a good-sized 289 cubic inch engine in this car, and it seems to fit very well. These were really designed on a Falcon chassis when they built the cars originally, but these have great ride, and they just when you drive one, everybody likes them. This car here happens to be a 4-barrel car, and it has power steering, and of course it did have add-on air conditioning. Now I think the air conditioning was put on pretty much maybe about 20 years ago. Brand new radiator. Motor in this car here looks like it's all been redone and rebuilt. It's all painted and cleaned really nice around here. Being a V8 4-barrel car, they used to call it really not 4-barrel, they were called 4V, and the V actually stood for Venturi. And so this is a 4 Venturi automobile. That's the way Ford went ahead and described them and labeled them out there for the Ford cars. This right here is really how you decipher a lot of the Ford products. The number that we're really looking for that will tell you when you do look it up in the code book, this is what they call, the Mustang world, they call an A code. A GT car with an A code actually meant a V8 289 with a 4-barrel, which we'll call what Ford calls a Ford V. The way the numbers start out, this right here will actually have a 6 for the year of the car. R will tell you what plant it was. It happened to be the San Jose plant. This right here will tell you the body type of the car, and this right here, the A code. A code is the engine, and the rest is sequential numbers on the listed. Now, the neat thing to do to find out if these cars are really wholesome and really the way to go, this set of numbers should be the same number that's on the door jamb of the car. You're going to see another set of numbers on the bottom. The bottom will tell you really quite a bit of things, really the paint code, paint color, and actually what transmission the car had. This will go ahead and tell you it had an automatic transmission, and it's going to tell you that the car is a 2-door hardtop.
And what's kind of a neat option, there's all sites of wheel covers you could get, and there's a couple. There was a hub cap, which is called a full wheel cover, and of course the wire with the 3-bar spinner on them. I like these a lot. I think they look fantastic. And of course they have what they call the style steel wheel, the GT wheels. It was a choice, it was an option. People bought them, they didn't. The thing I like about these is that these don't vibrate. These are easy to balance, and they come out really good, and anybody can take a tire on and off if you have an issue on an older car. I kind of like these spinners on there. I think the wire caps is a great touch. Listen to these doors when it opens. That is just class. That's the way they are. Mustangs have great latches, sounds really pretty good. And the door's really not that heavy, easy to open. And look how simple. The design of this car here was a driving automobile. These right here are disc brakes. GT cars came with disc brakes, 4-caliper, and it's the way they go. They're built and designed by Kelsey Hayes. You notice on the trim tag it is a standard interior. Standard interior, this would be a black interior, the standard door panels. It's not a real plush setup. Mustangs did have a couple. And of course the dash. The dash is going to be a plain dash. Now they did have a couple of other dashes that actually had wood grain, looked like the steering wheel, had a wood grain finish to it, and they actually look kind of nice. You can add these things to them, and there's a lot of places to order Mustang parts. It's probably one of the simplest cars to get parts for. I highly recommend anybody to get one. This is what you can do to make a lot of changes to personalize, touch your car, and it does not hurt the value by any means at all. It adds and it pluses to the car. This thing here is a replacement radio in it. It's a Mustang style radio, and actually has the cassette. I was going to say 8-track, but it has the cassette in there. Here's air conditioning. Simple Mustang setup. You can go ahead and buy them in all the Mustang stores to have them put in, and you have air conditioning. Air conditioning makes this car here night and day. It's phenomenal. Switches are easy to operate for the defroster and the heater. Floor shift is easy and comfortable to get to, and we did put in a wood steering wheel. This right here is a replacement steering wheel. It looks great on the car with the right cap that says Ford Mustang. Gives the car a nice touch, and with power steering, it makes this car here a really great driver. One of the cool things I like on the car here is the lower stripe. I used to call it just a regular GT stripe. It broke up between the emblems on here. These are actually, they're metal emblems they put on the car. They just don't do that today. And they run the stripe all the way down to the back of the car. What a great touch to put on the car. And it's not in the serial codes to know if a car did have one or not. So I kind of like them on the car. To me, it's a real big plus. But one of the neatest pluses on this car, and I love it because the way the breakdown of it between the color and the top, I think a vinyl top looks absolutely spectacular. And this right here is in extremely nice condition. And the way the top rolls in, being a black with the yellow on it. I like the yellow color, and I think if anybody does a color change and you pick a color you like, if you stay period correct to the car, it's to me is always a plus in how well done it was. You can see like the door jambs are all painted correctly. That means the rubber was off. Somebody took their time to go ahead and do this right. You can tell it's a base clearance. It's not a regular inexpensive paint job. It's a high quality paint job. But with the black top mixed together with it, I think it really does mix really together real well. Black vinyl top keeps the car nice and cool, and it gives it that good 60s look. These taillights on the car have probably been reproduced and used on so many cars throughout the world. There was dune buggies that used the Mustang rear lights. There were cars that put 2 or 3 together, and then the Cougar came out with one. They had all sorts of great, crazy ideas. But one of my favorite features, and I say it all the time on the show, I love dual exhaust. I think dual exhaust is the way to go in any car, but I'm a 60s guy. And of course, when it comes out the rear valance with these fluted tips on there, it just really proves the fact that's really called a GT valance. So a real true GT car will have a valance with a hole with a stainless steel bezel around it with the flutes coming out, and it really makes a world of difference on it and gives that car that really cool Mustang sound. There's an array of gas caps out there, but the Ford GT gas cap looks fantastic, and it comes on a GT car. There were some GT cars that did not have a GT gas cap, believe it or not. It's just crazy how the world and the way people ordered things and whatnot. But this is correct. This is a GT car, and this has the GT gas cap. This trunk is a good sized trunk. They put the spare tire, it's a pretty big unit that has a cover over it. All the hardware and the jack and everything is all inside there. But this is a pretty good size. You can set a set of golf clubs in there. You can do the grocery routine. You can still use a Mustang of the 60s, a 65, 66 on up. You can still use one actually as your daily driver. And I'll tell you something, I'll give you a bet. You go ahead and buy any car out there in the market, drive it for 4 or 5 years, and see what it's worth after 4 or 5 years. Will it run well, do what it needs to do? You buy a nice clean Mustang, you drive the car 4 or 5 years, you go to the bank.
Well, that'll be
My collection does not stop at straight rods. Don't get me wrong. I love them. That's what I do. And originals and antiques and all the classics. But there's nothing wrong with a 1972 Carmen Ghia. 72 Carmen Ghia was probably one of their better years. They had bigger lights in the back, and the motors were a little bit more powerful in 1972. It made them more of a driver, more top speed. And they're really coming along strong in the collector car world. And the Carmen Ghia is, I don't know, a notch above the Volkswagen world. And I really not generally do a lot of air-cooled cars, but this was just such a good car to do. And you'll be seeing this in one of our episodes because we got the car all stripped, the motor's all finished, the motor runs beautiful, and it's a 4-speed car, which I wouldn't want to do if it was an automatic, because I think the 4-speed car gives a little bit more. Got all the parts on order. We're going to show you next episode on all the stuff. The painter has this car ready. We're going to do kind of a, we're not going to do a base coat clear on this car. We're going to do a really nice, clean, good, wholesome paint job on it, but that's really the way they were done back then. They didn't use a base clear on Volkswagen or Carmen Ghia back when they were built. So you see some more episodes. This is what I call one of my winter projects. And let's take you and show you a couple more things we got cooking down here at the shop. Now this gorgeous 1941 Buick convertible is not my car. It's a customer's car. Smart customer, he knows he's done the shows, he's done the driving, and it's time now to get this car here serviced up so you can put it in storage or put it away for the winter. And I have different advice for people in their car, especially with gasoline. Keep the gas low as you possibly can. Gas life is horrible. The shelf life of gas is 6 months. Starts to stink, doesn't make the motor run very good, and all the money you guys invested in these cars, it's actually not bad advice. Find a way to get it out or keep it real low, gallon or 2 inside the tank, just so when you do add it, you're going to be okay. But this car here came in for service, and I just think it's a beautiful automobile. My shop gets a lot of these as the year comes on. These are people doing all sorts of restorations and cleanup and take care of their cars, and that's what we do over here. We get them in on all the time. Thought I happened to show you one of the car, my good buddy Ralph Teresi's car. Nice, beautiful top on it. He loves this car. So to bring it down here, you know, it's almost like taking care of one of the children, but it's just a gorgeous black car. Being the cabriolet model this car here is, being a 4-door, is spectacular, extremely rare, and it's beautiful. So we've had the 55 Chevy on the show a couple times. This is probably the oldest automobile, not as a car, but the oldest car I've actually owned. I've had this car for years. I don't even know how many years. Susan and I use this car because we know it's dependable. It takes us everywhere we need to go. Now, for winter project, I was going to show you some winter project stuff, is this 1967 Corvette. I've had this car here for a long time. It's a tri-power car, a 435 horse car, and I'm going to make some changes. I decided to go ahead and repaint the whole car. But we're going to redo the car in the correct color, and we're going to do the car in the Stinger, and the Stinger is going to be blue. They did not send a car out of the factory in 1967 with a white Stinger. We're going to change the seats back to the original. The reason why I'm doing this, you think, God, he's crazy. Those leather seats were expensive leather seats, all the door panels. The money put into it was phenomenal, but the value of these cars here now are $150,000 plus, and we decided to go ahead and take this and go back to the way the gas tank code claims this car here should be. It's called the tank sticker. You'll be seeing this car here go on. I think you're going to get a big kick out of it. Seeing a 1967 fastback 435 horse car, 427. It doesn't get too much better than that. I hope you enjoyed the show. The Hollywood Graham to me was the Hollywood car. Kind of stole the show. Had to show it to you. It's just one of those cars that I really thought was a pretty good piece to bring in. And of course, a lot of my own toys and a lot of my own projects that I got going on. Hey, you guys got any questions? Always get a hold of me over at Hennessy's Automotive or the Car Guy channel, www.carguychannel.com. Any of the questions like the Falcon, 4 links, brake systems are going on. That's what we do. More than happy to help and talk to you guys. Hey, live life well. God bless you, and we'll see you guys next week.